Hi there, and I'm Leah of the Live Life Movement, and I am starting a new little 8-week series today called the Live Life Chats. So here is the motivation behind the Live Life Chats. I'm really interested here at the Live Life Movement to start a movement community for women, a growing movement community for women. And here on Instagram, although I love sharing my story and I love sharing my movement and how it affects my life, and I love sharing my knowledge from my professional education and so on and so forth, I think the story really comes alive when we get to hear from other women and really how movement is really affecting their lives. How is it changing their lives beyond the aesthetics of how we look? And quite frankly, and I can't believe I'm saying this as a Pilates professional, but really beyond even kind of the way our body functions. Because although that's extremely important, very important, and although there's no shame in wanting to look our very best and feel our very best, really I think the nitty gritty comes down to is how is exercising, how is movement really profoundly improving our lives and the way that we live. And I hope that you agree. And thank you for all of you that have jumped on. And if you agree with that statement, give me a wave, give me some thumbs up, and we'll go with it. So I really want to connect to these stories. So we want to talk about our movement stories as women. I'm going to invite women to come on for the next 8 weeks. And we're going to see how this series goes. Invite women to come on for 8 weeks and really learn their stories. So today we're talking about living life educated and what that means. I have a ton of Pilates professionals that follow me here on Instagram, and I love you guys, and I see you logging on, and I appreciate you so much. But beyond being a Pilates professional, you are a woman. And beyond all the physical therapists and all the OBGYNs and the midwives and all the wonderful people who are educated on women's health, we are all women. And as women, we are just as empowered to know information as the professionals that we rely on. Maybe not as much, but we are just as empowered. So today we're going to talk about on living life educated and what that means. So my guest today is Veronica Colwell of Vero Pilates in Long Beach. And you guys, she is absolutely fantastic. I just adore her. She's wonderful. She's an amazing mama to one little boy. You can tell just in the way that she talks about her son. She runs an adorable community-based studio in Long Beach. It's absolutely adorable. And in addition to just supporting her amazing staff of teachers, in addition to creating a wonderful environment for her clients, she's also extremely passionate about bringing community events and education events to her studio. And this is something that really resonated with me. And so when Veronica approached me to come and teach at her studio, I just fell in love with her concept and fell in love with her passion of empowerment through education for Pilates professionals, but also for the everyday woman and the everyday client. So I really want to have Veronica come in on here. And another really cool thing about Veronica that is absolutely mind-blowing is she runs her business remotely. She lives in Bend, Oregon, and runs a very successful Pilates studio here in Southern California. Now, we're not going to get into that conversation today, but I'm fascinated by that, Veronica. And so I want to bring her on to talk about this empowerment idea and this education idea. So I'm a little bit new to this. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how we're going to invite Veronica here. So I'm sorry, you guys, if I mess up on this, I will absolutely make up for it, because it's really hard to do this without, sorry guys. I'm gonna keep talking though as I figure it out. It's hard to practice this without having blogging on and doing it. So what I wanna talk about is, I wanna talk about, the importance that education is on the way that we approach how we live everyday life. So if you could join me in the comments here and leave me comments here, how do you feel that education, knowing a little bit more about your body, has empowered you? In what ways? How has it empowered you to live your everyday life? Can you give me an example here in the comments as I kind of work on finding ways to invite Veronica here? Hi, Veronica. I'm trying to get you on here. If we need to pause and come back on, we absolutely will. I knew there would be technical difficulties. There always are. And I did my research and I looked it up. There's my camper, sorry. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to come back on. There, gotcha. I got you on, Veronica. Hi, Hi, there you
Hey!
are. I'm like sweating bullets here. I thought I might lose you.
You figured it out. Good job.
It's like, how can you test it without going live, right? I mean, come on. It's like, it's such a great thing that we have. So Veronica is here. So I'm still seeing, we didn't lose
Hi, everyone.
anybody. So thank you for your patience, guys. So Veronica, I just introduced you and I'm so excited that you're here, but let's dive in right into this concept on the importance of living life educated. So
Yes.
I have been sharing posts about the importance of being educated. And I'm talking in particular, my recent post more about the pelvic floor, and you have reciprocated with kind of some talk that you have, and you've been really beautiful in articulating kind of self-care into education. And you guys, if you don't follow Veronica, you absolutely need to, because she's a wonderful writer. Sorry, I'm going to boost you up, girl. She's a brilliant writer, and she has beautiful things to say, and she tells wonderful stories. And especially, I can get her newsletters now, and I just love them. I love reading them. They're just really wonderful. So thank you, Veronica.
That's very kind of you, Leah. Like you said, I mean, we're just honestly like trying to create a positive community. And we try to, you know, we're just trying to reach out to different groups. And women obviously is a huge community that I want to support. And I just love the work that you do. Like I've shared with you, you know, your videos on Pilates Anytime were essential to my prenatal and postpartum care. And I had the joy also of, at the time when I was expecting my little guy, I was taking lessons with one of my colleagues who you know, Sabina James. Mm-hmm. And she was actually utilizing also a lot of the pieces from your work. And it just made me like fall in love with what you were doing for women. And I found it so helpful and so supportive in preparing for childbirth and then dealing with postpartum, because it was very complicated in my case. I know it's not in everybody's case, but we had a very challenging birthing experience, and postpartum was not easy. So having your support in this case, even virtually at the time, because I didn't know you personally, was very helpful. And so I had a great admiration for your work. And so when the opportunity came up to invite you into our space and, you know, have you share from your knowledge base with us as a community, I just, you know, I jumped on the opportunity of saying, hey, please come. So, so we're really excited, you know,
I love that. And I'm excited too. Before we kind of get into some of your experience professionally, I want to talk about you personally. So you just mentioned kind of how you use movement to kind of empower you during pregnancy and then during birth. And although you had a difficult birth and a difficult postpartum experience, movement was, I'm assuming, movement was a part of your equation of improving your postpartum mental health and emotional health, correct?
Absolutely. It was fundamental, I would say. As I was sharing with you, I postpartum got even more complicated in my case because I did experience postpartum depression and anxiety, even OCD. So, you know, coming from the world of movement and being a Pilates instructor and just always having been very connected to movement as a tool in my toolbox, as I was experiencing those emotions and starting to have those thoughts and everything, immediately my mind went to, okay, well, what can I do to feel better? What can I do to help myself? Yeah. And the first thing that came to my mind was walk. Just walk, literally. And initially, because I was so weak physically, that meant walking around my block. And then it meant walking 2 blocks. And then I built up to where eventually I was taking my baby out for a 2-hour walk, and we were going down to the shore and to the playground and all kinds of fun things. But I want to share that with other moms, because sometimes we think movement has to be this extravagant, fancy thing. Like, you know, I've got to go to the studio or I've got to go to the gym, or sometimes we can't. Sometimes emotionally we can't bear maybe seeing other people. Sometimes physically we feel too weak. Sometimes whatever the situation is, And I think it's important to say that movement can be something extremely simple. And I enjoy seeing your videos of you with your boys because, you know, a lot of moms are there. They have multiple children. I've got one kid, but, you know, some moms have more than one. And, you know, you feel overwhelmed sometimes of like, well, when am I going to find time to do this? And what am I going to do? Like the kids are everywhere, you know? But, you know, even if it's something as simple as those 5 minutes of stretching or breathing, or like I did, like walk around the block, something very simple, but it's enough a lot of times to just, you know, trigger the gears in your mind so that you can move forward with whatever other, you know, activities or decisions you need to make that day.
Absolutely. And so, Veronica, that's so powerful. It makes me want to tear up because I think, yes, as women, you know, mothers or not, or mothers of littles or mothers of older kids, I think we can all relate to the notion that we have been so conditioned, especially our generation, from young girls. You have to think that like exercise, the notion of exercise really kind of started in the 70s, like with like jogging became like a thing that everyday people were doing, and you know, aerobics and things like that. And so the 70s and the 80s and the 90s is really kind of this new concept that like exercise is for the everyday person, not just reserved for athletes, not just reserved for professionals, and not reserved for blue collar sort of individuals like farmers, you know. So you know, so it's interesting that we have been raised, depending on where you're born, it doesn't really matter. Like I found out not long ago that I'm like the first year of millennial, and I'm like, what? I'm a millennial now, you know, but it's not such a bad thing. But anyhow, my point is that we've been culturally conditioned to think about exercise more is more is more is more.
Yeah.
And there's a time and a place for more is more is more is more, but there's also living your life. And sometimes we can't do more. There's nothing wrong with doing more as long as it's coming from a healthy mental capacity and a healthy physical place, an emotional place. But when we have to also, and I love that there's so many beautiful individuals talking now in this space of social media and really talking about how no, that is not the only option that we have as individuals and as women, is that a little bit goes a long way and a little bit counts. And really we have to identify what our goals are. So without getting into kind of going off on a tangent on that, my question for you is, you just said so many fantastic things about the importance of getting started and one step, 2 steps, and then that progressing, like you said, into these 2-hour walks with your son as your body became stronger and just, you know, all of that. Where did you, talking on the idea of living life educated, you can get inspiration, you can hear that from people, but I'm interested to know, is there a moment where you read something or heard something where somebody educated you on that idea and it triggered and it made that switch for you?
Well, I mean, it's a complex question. I don't know that I have a simple answer to that. I think in my case, there were several factors that I would say I drew on in that situation. One was definitely my work with Pilates, both in my personal practice and as an instructor, and reminding myself of the things I've often told my clients. You know, and you kind of like, okay, you're here, you're in the same place now. Like, okay, are you gonna do what you always recommend for other people to do?
Absolutely. Walk the walk.
Yeah, exactly. And so Pilates for me, you know, it was life-changing when it entered my life. And at the time, it was a huge support system for me in terms of coping with, at the time I was caring for my mother who was sick, dealing with a full-time job, finishing college. Like, it was just insanity. So I had experienced in my body how Pilates had helped me get through, honestly, like had really helped me stay sane through a lot of situations. But in addition to that, I will say, again, the power of women teaching other women, in this case, my mother. One of the things, she was always outdoors. Like she had a garden and like she was always gardening, and she loved walking and hiking. And so, you know, when she was dealing with breast cancer and was in a really, really bad place, I knew deep inside that if I could get her to move again, that there was a chance that she could do better and feel better. And that's how we started. We literally started again, like one step at a time. And I would drive her to one of our favorite hiking trails, and we would walk 5 minutes in one direction and walk back 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we'd walk 10 minutes, and we built on that. And during a period of time, as she was ill, but she was somewhat stable, I mean, we were going for long hikes, and we loved it. It was our time together. And that has always stuck with me, that something as simple as walking, especially walking outdoors. I mean, it's great to walk on a treadmill and all that, if that's what you can do. But if you can take yourself outdoors and add that element of fresh air and sunshine and, you know, chirping birds and green leaves and flowers, it honestly, like so many times, has the power to just help you find more ease.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I was thinking about the points that you had made in your post, and where you said empower our choices. Yeah. And I was thinking so many times in life, before I choose a path or decide how I'm going to react to a situation, I move.
Ooh, I love that.
You know, a lot of times I feel like, I feel like
so true. It is. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Veronica. Yes, it's so true. First of all, I'm sorry. Do you want to finish your thought?
No, I mean, just saying that, like, you know, it's okay. Yeah, like, I mean, you know, because we come across situations, and sometimes you're like, you want to just react, or you don't know how to react. And a lot of times when I move, and it can be different things on different days. Some days I need like a full crazy cardio insanity type thing. And some days I need like a super calm walk with my dog and just breathing or whatever. It can be anything. But a lot of times that's what it takes for me to know better what path I want to take.
Absolutely. Amen. I mean, just like happy dance all the way. There's a couple things that you said that, and then we'll transition into our last topic here.
Yeah.
A couple things that you said that really stood out to me was women educating women. And I love that your answer, I mean, although I would have loved any answer you gave me, but in this particular situation, I love that your answer wasn't necessarily that you learned from, you know, somebody who has a really high education. And that's thing from somebody who, I mean, I have a master's degree and, you know, all that stuff. But I think sometimes we get caught up in this idea that we are so not dependent, but we get wrapped up in like the people like myself or like that have degrees and they've taken the time, like, yes, we need to be educated by those individuals because they put the time and the effort and they have the expertise and they put that expertise into practice. And it's really important to have that knowledge. On the other side of that, there's so much to be said about experiential knowledge, experiential education, experiential wisdom. Yeah. And it's so important that we know that every one of us has that inside of us. No matter the size of our Instagram accounts or our followers, or frankly, the matter the size of our degrees, we have some education and wisdom that we can impart on those around us, and particularly those that we care for and those that we love. And when we can accept education and knowledge from other women around us, it just heightens our experiences so much. And like you said, it opens up the opportunity for us to really understand that we have so many more choices than what we actually think we have. Yeah. And I love, Veronica, because I was just thinking this about how much I use movement as a part of my choice and my decision-making process. And we think about things like, thinking about things, prayer and meditation, fantastic. We think about things like just something simple, like sleeping on it, right? Letting our subconscious kind of mull it over. We think about things of confiding in people that we trust, mentors, friends, family. Those are all great, but there's a huge part of that equation, which is movement as a part of that. Because when we move, we're in a meditation as well. And then in that, that's a part of that education process, is that we can simulate things, we can process things during movement. So I really love that you said that, and that makes such an important decision. So that is so important, that through your realms of education, from your college degree to your just running a business to the things that you've gotten from your family, all across the board, is that you've been able to parlay that education into living your life more powerfully. And like what you said from the examples of my recent post, is really about, empowering your choices. I mean, that's such a great phrase, is we have to empower our choices through education. And there's so many stories that we can tell. And I love your story here. But if you don't have any other points to make on you personally, I'd love to transition into maybe something about your professional life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
so as Veronica had mentioned at the beginning of this call, which of course, if you're just jumping on or you're jumping on here, you'll be able to see in the replay and so on and so forth. But she had mentioned that we're coming together in September to do a workshop. And we're doing a professional workshop for Pilates teachers, and we're also doing a community workshop. And community workshops are something that I've really started to implement into my practice and into my professional life over the years, because I really feel like I was spending so much time educating Pilates teachers, which is great, because then they go and they educate people in the community, which is fantastic. It's a beautiful trickle-down effect. But I also wanted to directly educate and communicate with the community, with women, lay women, non-professional movers, non-professional teachers, women that are just interested in learning more about their body, and etc. So Veronica has graciously opened up her studio to give me the opportunity to teach my pelvic floor workshop, which is called Oops, I Peed My Pants, The Need to Restore Your Pelvic Floor. So we're going to be doing that in September. But I wanted to, so that's why Veronica and I are talking about living life educated. So I wanted to talk about your passion for educating your community. And then I'm really interested in knowing, you've given us a little bit of insight as to why you're passionate about that, but rather than maybe telling us why you are, if you could give us an example that really brings it home, because just in the interest of time, but really brings it home as to where's the story of a client, a movement story of a client of yours, or just a studio client, that because of education, obviously through their Pilates practice and through their Pilates sessions, or through any workshops that they've attended, that have really, really taken that leap from translating that work from movement, Pilates studio, out into their life. Do you have an example for that to share with us to kind of end this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually really hard to pick just one example.
I'm sure. I'm so sure.
You've worked with so many clients over the years too, so I'm sure you've got a whole collection of stories that you could also pull from. But yeah, I mean, I guess the one that, like, when you asked me that question, like, first popped into my head was this beautiful mom. She's in her, I would say, I think she's probably late 40s at this point. And she's got 3 kids, and she loves movement. I mean, she's a woman who was active. You know, she was active. She was going to classes. She was doing what she could. But she had been in pain for years, like over a decade. Debilitating pain in her pelvic area and in her low back, and frustrated because, you know, she thought she was doing all the right stuff. You know, she was, you know, doing exercise. She was, you know, taking care of her nutrition, you know, all the stuff. And it was actually a dear chiropractor friend of mine who referred her to our studio. And I was so happy to be able to work with her initially. And it was interesting because she had to learn to slow down and to really feel more intricate work deeper in her pelvic region and in her abdominal area that she had never visited. no one have, no doctors, no therapists, nobody had ever told her, okay, slow down and now think about what you're feeling as you do this movement. And it could be something as simple as lifting one leg to tabletop and trying to gauge where her pelvis was and how her hip joint was working. And so we literally like spent some time breaking down all these foundational concepts for her. And in her case, it was a lot about learning to stabilize her pelvis and her low back. And, she just, she felt the changes happening. And now, I mean, she's doing like advanced group classes, she's no longer a private client. She's independent, which I'm so proud of. It's like you see the birdies fly out of the nest. Yes. You're so proud of them, And I mean, for her to now be back in a place where she can pick and choose what movement she wants to do, she can enjoy it. She's not feeling, painful repercussions for moving. Yeah. That is joy for me. Like, knowing that now she feels empowered to be able to play with her kids, live a physically active life, not be in constant pain, be able to lift things and move and, around her home. And, that for me is such a gift, to see women, through education, through learning about their bodies, be able to make better decisions for themselves in terms of even what type of movement they should be choosing on any given day. Learning to listen to their bodies, learning to be respectful of their own bodies. And then seeing all these wonderful, results that come from that, and thinking about all the people she loves and how that affects them too, because now mommy's not in pain all the time. Yeah. And my wife is not always complaining because you can't do this or that. I mean, it has ripple effects on everybody.
Yeah, I think so. So yes, the education of slowing down, the education of internalizing the work, the education of learning the details of the way our body moves, the education of learning the order of movement, so to speak, of, stabilization, mobilization, flexibility, strength, all of those type of things. Yeah. Those things that just aren't necessarily in our vernacular as lay people all the time. Just those simple ideas of learning that, what is the foundation of our movement? What is the smaller foundations before we build the bigger things on top of it? Fine motor movement compared to gross movement, So those type of things, yes, you're right. And how that education parlayed into her life, beyond the extraordinary gift of not living in pain anymore, is then she's able to connect, she's able to experience, she's able to be vibrant, she's able to, those are the ways that we want to live our life. We want to live our life connected to those we love. We want to live our life experiencing the things that our heart calls us to experience. And we want to live our life vibrantly and full of energy and full of brightness and full of bright eyes and with joy. And it's so silly to think that it can start with something as simple as learning how to stabilize your pelvis or the way that your pelvis functions, but absolutely, amen, it's the way that it works. And I've experienced so much in my practice that it's just like algebra, right? You have to have the different parts of the equation figured out before you can equal that whole sum. Yeah. And you have to incorporate all of it. And you really do. You have to have the emotional health and the mental health and the physical health. And the physical health, as easy as I would like to say that it just is get up and move, which sometimes is a good start. A lot of times, a lot of women's bodies aren't capable of getting up and moving in the way that they need to. So they have to pull back the reins a little bit, slow down, start from the beginning, and rebuild on that new foundation. And that is what education does. That's what living life educated does. It doesn't mean you need to go get a degree. It doesn't mean you need to read all the textbook. It means that you need to get those little nuggets of information and education that start to create those little aha moments, like your walk, Like
Yeah.
you're taking a walk, like your grandmother taking 5 minutes into the forest and 5 minutes out. I mean, that just made me want to cry. It's those little tidbits of education, no matter how big or profound, no matter how many fancy anatomy terms that we use or not, it does not matter. It's just about being educated and then being mindful about how that education empowers us in how we live life.
Totally. Totally.
Yes, and it's so exciting, and we're gonna go because it's been a half hour. Veronica texted me, she's like, it's gonna be longer than 15 minutes. I mean, yeah, you're right. But I love this, and this is so great, and this makes me want to cry because this is really where my heart is and what I want to do, and I know this is where your heart is. And I know all the women that I'm inviting to come onto these Live Life chats, I know this is where so many of our hearts are, and we need to have these conversations and we need to share each other's stories. And you said things so beautifully and so wonderfully. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Well, I mean, my main thought at this particular moment in time is like, take advantage of opportunities that are there in front of you. Whether they be in your daily life or in, you know, we're talking about also your upcoming workshop in Long Beach, Sunday, September 8th from 10 to 1, you know, 3 hours, you get to be with a group of women who are, you know, open to learning about themselves, learning about their bodies. We're going to, you know, I can't wait to move with you.
Yes, we will move. We'll have a great movement class. Yes.
I'm excited.
And I think it's really about, if I were to say it in any way, and I think you'll agree with this, Veronica, it's really about no longer being passive when it comes to our own education.
Right.
Yes. Let's rely on the professionals when we need to, but we need to be responsible for our own education. I think that's really what this is about, is no longer being passive. Take 3 hours out of your Sunday, September 8th, come join us, and we are just going to have the best time. We're going to talk about all sorts of funny, intimate things, and then we're going to bring it all together with an amazing movement class that goes way beyond Kegels. Trust me, you're going to love these pelvic floor exercises. They make you feel sensual and beautiful and graceful, and it's going to be wonderful. So I'm so excited. A couple quick questions for you just for fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So my quick question is, what is your movement plan for today?
Oh, actually, I'm very excited. So today I get to go to a Pilates studio here in Bend. Yeah. There's a lovely instructor here. She has a home studio that's gorgeous. It's like a barn her husband like renovated, and it's got high ceilings and beautiful balanced body equipment.
Can you take pictures and put it on your stories? Because I want to see. That sounds amazing.
I will. She's lovely. We've connected, and she's so gracious to let me use her space for my workouts. So I'm very excited because today I've blocked off 1 hour. I'm dropping my kid off at his little summer program, and mommy's going to get her workout.
I love that. Okay, so then here's my question for that. So that's your movement plan for today. That's your structured exercise movement plan. Yes. What is your, like, what I'm calling daily movement engagement? What are you going to be doing that's not structured exercise, but that's movement?
Not structured. Probably some cleaning.
Oh, good. Yes, that counts.
Housework counts. And another thing that I've been working hard on with my PT, actually, because I'm working with a physical therapist who I love. And we've been talking a lot about how at the end of the day, because I've got neck and shoulder issues, the value of, I actually moved my foam roller into my living room.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, I'm going to lie down on my foam roller, and I'm going to stretch my shoulder girdle. I'm going to do some, I'm get those shoulders in place. But yeah, just release, because so much of our day is spent hunched over, and we're on our phones or on our computers, and we're working, and it's all necessary. But then at the end of the day, how do you want to finish your day? And so, you know, I want to stretch. I want to open this area up. I want to let my diaphragm move and get some good breaths in before I relax to go to sleep. So I'm trying to improve on that. So
that is so amazing. So kind of a part of like your nighttime routine, like part of your nighttime winding down routine. Okay. Absolutely. One last question for you. So after you do your Pilates session today, and you're going to put something into your body. We're going to start with a drink. What do you choose? Smoothie, kombucha, or coffee?
Oh, after movement, kombucha.
Kombucha, yes, good. I love it. I mean, I didn't say water because that's kind of a given. So you would do kombucha. What flavor?
Oh, so there's this brand here. Bend is like kombucha central.
I was just going to say that. I can only imagine how much kombucha and craft beer. I mean, I've been there and I've had the craft beer, but like you haven't Bend. It's, yeah.
Totally. It's like on tap everywhere. But gosh, what's the name of this brand? I think it's called like High Mountain or something, but they have this kombucha that's like peach blossom or something.
Ooh.
And it is so good. And it's so refreshing, and it just is yummy, and it feels so good.
I love that. That is so good. Well, thank you, Veronica, for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation. Even minus like I was like just sweating bullets that I wasn't going to be able to get you on. Thank you to those of you who have joined us. And I know you guys had to pop on and pop off. We will do the replay so you can hear it. You can hear the whole thing. I'll even maybe do a little recap of it, kind of similar to how they do in podcast notes and things like that. So we can have some little tidbits of wisdom pulled out of here. So thank you guys for joining. We will open up maybe on our next calls a little bit more of an opportunity for questions and things like that. Is kind of I improve on kind of how I run these chats, but this was so fantastic. You are so full of light. I mean, you're just glowing. You're so beautiful inside and out, and just so full of light, and just have so much sweet, wonderful wisdom to impart. And you're just really doing such a great job on bringing your Long Beach community and further together within the Southern California area. It's just really inspiring to see as one entrepreneur mother to another. And so, yeah, so that's it. We will, we'll just do a recap of this. And then if you guys are interested, again, we're going to say it one more time. We have the public floor workshop on September 8th in Long Beach, and it's from 10 to 1 o'clock. So a very short span of time for just wonderful, profound education that you can apply to your life right away. And then we bring all of that education together with the experience of movement.
We're very excited. Thank you so much, Leah, for having me. It was really nice to enjoy this conversation.
It was. Thank you, Veronica. Okay, we'll see you soon. And thank you guys for joining me as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rather.
Bye.